So a couple years ago, I made a video talking about how to set up your dual PC streaming setup, and at the time, it was probably the best way to optimize it, but now I've actually figured out a better way to run it, and we're still going to be using Elgato's 4K 60 Pro Mark II, but there's a couple things I wanted to touch up on. So for starters, in the last video, I didn't tell you where to install the capture card. You need to install this capture card in the streaming PC, and it has to be a desktop computer. This is not compatible with a laptop, and it has to be in the streaming, not the gaming PC. You will also need two HDMI 2.0 or higher cables. We will not be using the DisplayPort and HDMI cloning method anymore. We will be using the HDMI pass-through method. So before we go any further, make sure that you have the most recent version of OBS Studio downloaded. That's the software we're going to be using. I do not use Streamlabs OBS or whatever they call it now. I use OBS Studio, and make sure you have Elgato's 4K capture utility. That's actually what installs the drivers for the capture card, so you can download those both in the description down below. So we're going to start obviously with the streaming PC. Last time I started with the gaming PC, and I think it actually makes more sense to start with setting up the streaming PC. So make sure on the streaming PC you have your headphones, your audio interface if you use one, your microphone, and your camera all plugged into the streaming PC. None of these items will be plugged into the gaming PC, as we'll set all that stuff up later on the gaming PC. The only thing you should be running on your gaming PC at this point is your mouse and keyboard, and potentially if you play on controller, because everything else, your audio and your microphone source, are all going to be routed directly from the streaming PC. So after you've downloaded OBS, you've installed the 4K capture utility, you've also installed the Elgato 4K 60 Pro in the motherboard of the streaming PC, as well as all the other hardware components I just listed, it's time to actually start routing everything. First, we're going to start with the HDMI routing. Go ahead and plug in one cable each on the HDMI in and the HDMI out of the Elgato capture card. The HDMI in end is going to actually go into the gaming PC's graphics card. So one end should be in the Elgato capture card, which is in your streaming PC, and then the other end of that cable should be in the graphics card of the gaming PC. Then take the HDMI outside and plug that into the monitor that you're going to be gaming on. What this is going to do is it's going to allow a pass-through video signal that will have no lag directly into your gaming monitor. Once you've done this, just make sure that your PC is turned on so that the capture card is actually seeing signal. After you're done plugging in both of those cables, go ahead and open the 4K capture utility, and you should see it initialize after a couple seconds, and you should see on that window the same what you see on the gaming monitor screen. Once that's been opened up, go ahead and click on the gear at the top right corner. This is your settings, and we're going to navigate over to the device tab, and we're going to change both of the EDIDs. The first EDID should just be left to default. That should work perfectly fine. Now the second one you do want to set to the resolution that you're playing at. I personally play at 1440p, 144 Hertz, so you're going to want to make sure that the EDID of the card is also set to match whatever resolution you're playing at from your gaming PC. I wouldn't be surprised if Elgato announces an HDMI 2.1 capture card coming up in the future, but that's going to use a lot of bandwidth, but it will be pretty dope once we actually start getting higher frame rates for higher resolutions. Now this should be all set. We shouldn't have to worry about setting the hardware settings on the capture card anymore. So next we're going to actually go into the Windows audio settings. So at the bottom right corner of the streaming PC, we're going to left click on that little speaker, and you're going to set it to whatever your headphone source is. Now if you're using USB headphones like Astros or HyperX, you're going to want to set it to them. But if your headphones are wired and say they're plugged into an audio interface like an Elgato Wave XLR or a Go XLR or anything like that, you're going to want to set it to whatever your headphone source is for your setup. There's no way that I can possibly cover every single device example, so you're just going to have to know what your setup is. In this instance, I actually use an Elgato Wave XLR, and I use my Bear Dynamics that are plugged into it, so I use the headphones source from the Wave XLR. Next, we're going to right-click on that speaker and click on the sound settings box. Then a new window is going to open, and you're going to click on the sound control panel at the top right corner. If you don't see it, just expand the box a little bit and it'll show up. Once that little box opens, you're going to click on the playback tab. It should open by default. go ahead and find that headphone source that we just selected and click on it and click it as set as default. What this is going to do is every time Windows starts, it's going to remember that that is the device we want to use for your headphone source, so it doesn't change to something else unintentionally. While we're in here, we're also going to set your default mic source. So click on the recording tab and you're going to find whatever your microphone source is. Again, if you're using a USB mic like a Blue Yeti or a HyperX Quadcast or an Elgato Wave, something like that, click on that. Click set as default. This way, Windows remembers that that's always going to be your microphone source. Now, again, if you're using an XLR mic like I am, like the Shure SM7B, you have to know what your audio interface's name is. And again, I use the Wave XLR, so I'm going to set the Wave XLR as my default recording device. So now we have the Windows desktop audio all routed, as well as your microphone audio routed. So that's all we have to worry about for this setup. I'm not going to talk about particularly how to use a single mic on a dual PC setup in this video because I already made another one for that, which I'll leave a card up over here for you if you want. It's too much to explain in one video. If you are enjoying the video, please don't forget to drop a thumbs up. I would greatly appreciate it. If you want to subscribe, also appreciate it. If you are confused at any of this, the link in the description down below, you can join Discord, and I actually have a step-by-step file that you can download for free in the hashtag free stuff channel, or you can jump into Tech Talk and you can talk to me or a couple other people in the community and we can help you get your setup running super smooth. Appreciate it. Let's hop back into it. So now that we have finished routing all of the desktop audio on Windows, let's hop into OBS and route the rest of the audio inside there. So right when we open OBS, we're gonna go find the desktop audio slider. Click on the gear, click on properties, and then find the drop down arrow box and find that same headphone source that we just set on the Windows settings. This is imperative. If this does not match, the audio will not work for this setup. So this has to be the same source as what we set for Windows. So for me, I use the headphones from Elgato and I'm going to use that. So we click that on and now they match and we are good to go. Now I'm going to assume, since you're on a dual PC streaming setup, that you already know the basics of OBS on how to link your account and how to set up overlays and things like that. So I'm not going to show you how to do all that. I am going to show you how to set up the audio though, so you can hear the gaming PC. So go ahead and click on sources and add a new video capture device. Just name it 4K 60 Pro and then go ahead and find that in the little drop down box. Once you've clicked on that, set the resolution to 1920 by 1080 and set your frames to 60. A quick side note is that if your streaming computer actually runs at a higher resolution than 1080p, you can set your canvas in OBS to match that. However, I always downscale from 1080p, so I always just set my capture card to match 1080p anyway, because that's what my streaming PC runs at. My gaming PC runs at a higher resolution, but the streaming PC itself only ever runs at 1080p, so OBS's canvas only ever needs to match what the streaming PC is. Now that we can see the video capture card inside of OBS, we are going to click on that little gear on the audio slider again, and we're going to go to advanced audio properties this time instead of regular audio properties. A new box is going to open, and on the right hand side you're going to see a bunch of drop down boxes that say monitoring. You're going to find the one for the 4K 60 Pro, and you're going to set this to monitor only, mute output. Now the reason it has to be mute output and not monitor only is because if you set it that way, what's going to happen is you're going to get a doubled echo effect because of the way we set up the desktop audio. So what you want to do is set it to monitor only, mute output. That way when you hear it back in your headphones, it's going to play through the desktop audio of OBS, and this will allow you and Stream both to hear what's happening on the gaming PC in real time. And if you followed all these steps correctly, you should now be able to talk in OBS. You should also be able to hear the gaming PC. You will only be able to hear the gaming PC when OBS is open, and both computers will have to be running. This is a downside of dual PC streaming. This is just one of the things that you have to deal with. Not to mention, you need the streaming PC to be on anyway with this method, because the capture card needs to have power so it can send the HDMI signal from the gaming PC to the monitor. Otherwise, it won't be able to pass through the video signal. Now that OBS has been fully sorted, we're gonna hop over to the gaming PC. All right, post-editing Danny here, and I realized that they changed something on one of the setups, so now we're gonna do it this way. So we're on the gaming PC right now. We are looking at the gaming PC. And so to route the audio for the gaming PC, you're gonna left click on the speaker down here, and you're gonna see Elgato 1080 HDR, and you're pretty much just gonna select that. And then you're gonna right click on the speaker, just kind of following the same method that we did for the streaming PC. We're gonna go into sound settings, and we are going to expand this so you can see sound control panel over here. And then you are going to find the Elgato 1080 HDR here, and you're just gonna set that as your default. It's grayed out for me because I already have it set like that. Set default, apply, hit OK, boom. And that's how you route the audio. Now, if the Elgato HDR, the 1080 HDR selection here doesn't show up, try selecting your monitor model. And the reason it might not show up like this is because you're sending the audio over HDMI, and it might just register as what your monitor model is rather than the capture card. That's totally fine. It's not a big deal. It still will work. I use an Asus TUF monitor, so you'll just have to select whatever your gaming monitor is. All right, back to the real video. Boop. Thank you. The last step is to set your proper resolution back. So what we're going to do, and this is for NVIDIA users because I'm not familiar with AMD users. I'm sorry, I don't have any AMD cards to really give you any way to do this. So you're just gonna have to know what your AMD interface looks like. So for the gaming PC, go ahead and right click on the desktop and click on the NVIDIA control panel. You're gonna see on the left-hand side column, there's gonna be one that says change resolution. And what we're going to do is we're going to set it to the resolution that you play at. Now, again, I play at 1440p. So the one thing you have to note about this is that you're going to see some resolutions at the top that will cap you out at 60 Hertz. What you actually need to do is you need to scroll down in these boxes of resolutions until you see something that says PC with a bunch of lines past it. Then click on your resolution, because these are the resolutions that allow you to play at higher refresh rates. So select 2560 by 1440, and then click on the little refresh rate on the right-hand side, and this is going to allow you to set it to the resolution you want. Again, this card maxes out at 1080p 240, 1440p 144, or 4K 60. And a fun little trick actually is you can confirm that you're playing back at the resolution you want by opening the 4K capture utility on the streaming PC, and at the top right corner, you're actually going to see what resolution it's reading coming from the gaming PC. That's a nifty little way to know that you are playing at the desired resolution you want to play at. So now in theory, you should have all of your audio routed, your mic set up, and you should also have the proper resolution and refresh rate to be playing at. If you want to know how to talk into your gaming PC with a single mic that's on your streaming PC, again, go ahead and click on the card right here, and it will direct you to another video that I set up showing up how to do that. No extra hardware required. This is all software based. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.